If you as a leader act like they don't exist except when you need them, then yes, they will feel left out. They will be left out. They will be overlooked.
Y'all, today's show is so good.
But number one, I've never seen an intro like that.
It is my hope and desire that not only will episode 30 still be fun, but episode 300 will be even more fun. You are made for something great, so go and be awesome.
Ten seconds remaining.
And welcome to the show. My name is Renee Hastings, and I'm your host of Renee Speaks. Y'all, today's show is going to be so good, and part of that reason is because of our amazing sponsor, Executive Help Now. Executive Help Now is your premier virtual assistant service agency, and we are all about simplifying your business so that you can focus on what really matters. From streamlining operations to managing administrative tasks and keeping everything organized, our team is here to help you thrive. If you're ready to make life a little bit easier, visit us at www.executivehelpnow.org. Y'all, today's guest is Dr. David Arrington, and he is a sought-after keynote speaker, thought leader, and leadership coach dedicated to empowering professionals to unlock their full potential. With a focus on leadership, change management, and fostering inclusive workplaces, Dr. Arrington inspires audiences across the country. As the author of Promotable, he equips leaders with practical strategies to authentically advance their careers and achieve meaningful success. Y'all, put your hands together for Dr. David Arrington. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
How are you?
On top of the world, having the best day ever. Renee, how about yourself?
I am amazing. And even better now that we get to hang out.
Absolutely.
Wow, it's so good to have you on the show. And I know you said that I didn't have to call you doctor, but I actually love calling you Dr. Arrington. But for you, I'm going to call you David.
No worries. No worries. Either I'll answer to anything.
I love that. Well, thanks for making it easy. So why don't we go ahead and jump in and get started? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, how you got started, and why engaging remote teams is so important and change leadership is so important to you.
So a little bit of background on me. I started my career in IT, then I moved into ministry, and that ministry led me to coaching, and coaching led me to my own organization. Why? That's the very, very quick Cliff's Notes. In my coaching career, I've worked with leaders in over 14 industries. Our training platform has trained over 1,000 leaders. We have like a 4.9 stars there. So the type of leadership development I do, it works because I've had the experiences. I've gone through the struggles and I understand what busy leaders need right now. And with respect to remote teams, a big part of my focus on remote work, because we've been doing remote coaching since before the pandemic. When the pandemic made remote necessary, required, we had been doing it for years before that, because I believe strongly that we have the technology and it saves everyone time. And I believe time is my most important asset, and it's non-renewable. I don't get yesterday back. My early experiences, which really pushed me into the remote side of things, I worked for an organization that required me to drive 6 hours one way for a 30-minute meeting we could have had on the phone. So when I say 6 hours one way, round trip, 12 hours for a 30-minute meeting. They would have meetings that were off sites that would go 4 days that could have been summarized in an email. I've had those experiences. I've felt that pain. So I never want to inflict that pain on anyone else. And personally, I believe so strongly in the value of my time and the lack of renewableness. I have a doctorate, I can make up words. So the lack of renewable time, I don't get it back. So why would I waste anyone else's time, much less my own? So when it comes to remote work, that's fundamentally an underpinning. That's an underpinning. There are others, but yeah, that's my experience has definitely fed into my desire to help others be effective in a virtual space.
Wow, I love that. And I hate, first of all, that you had to drive 6 hours one way for a 30-minute meeting. That
And then they would be late. So don't even, I could rage on that for a while, but yes, it is definitely foundational and formative for me.
Oh, I can imagine how traumatizing, number one. And that is so ridiculous and such a disrespect for people and their time. Like, absolutely. Executive Help Now also got started way before the pandemic. We started in 2014. So as a remote or virtual assistant service company, we were remote way long before we were made to be remote. So like you, it was easy for us to make a shift because we didn't really have our shift to make.
Exactly.
We were just doing what we'd already done or already been doing. So one of the things though, at being a virtual business, and I'm not going to make this all about us, I'm going to make it about those who find themselves in a place where they're considering maybe taking their team or their workforce to a remote situation. Mm-hmm. So, and that could be a lot of people, especially in this time that we're in, where things are changing and costs are being cut to accommodate for other things that are happening. The work still has to get done. So, absolutely. What do you think is the biggest mistake, or first of all, the first considerations business leaders need to think about when they're considering going remote, and then the biggest mistakes they make once they make that decision?
So you need to figure out, can this work be done effectively in a remote situation? So before you just go remote, you need to identify where can we find the early wins? Where can we step into a remote situation and create a positive experience for everyone involved versus just doing a knee-jerk, hey, we're not meeting anymore in the office, or I want to put things together in a way so we're all remote. You want to be very intentional about what you can and cannot do in a remote environment. And personally, I believe you can do most things. I would argue 90% of all work can be done in a remote environment. And it just requires you to identify not only if it can be done, but secondly, create the processes, the structure, the strategy, and understand that you still can build culture in a remote environment because you'll be doing it anyway. Most people end up creating a virtual culture accidentally because they weren't thinking about how everything they do is culture, and it's just moving it from in person to online. And just quick history lesson, we've been doing online work in virtual teams for far longer than the last 4 to 5 years. Way before the pandemic, back in the 90s, when I came out of, I sound so old. When I came out of college, my first job, I was working with a multinational organization, and I had people on my team who sat in offices on different continents, but we were still communicating, we were still coordinating, we were still working. So remote teams aren't new. It's just, I think it was more of the thrust into remote and everyone going remote overnight that caused such a huge, not backlash, but it caused more angst and consternation than it should have. It upset more people because it was no longer a choice. It was no longer an option. It was, oh, you will do this. But remote teams have been around for a long, long time. The technology has been around for a long, long time. But now it has become so mainstream that it needs to be in every leader's, in every entrepreneur's, in every business owner's toolkit. How do I lead effectively in a remote environment? So first, figure out if you can do it. Second, make sure that you intentionally put structure in place to ensure that the work gets done. And you asked what's the biggest mistake most people make. They expect to have the same two things. They expect to have the same type of interactions that they had in person online. And that leads to people wanting their employees to just leave the camera on all day. We saw a lot of that at the beginning of the pandemic, and it is catastrophic for morale. It's catastrophic for productivity. It feels like Big Brother's watching you, but that's a big mistake people make. They don't trust their people. And that lack of trust is amplified in a remote environment.
Wow. I love that you're actually talking about that trust and the systems that need to be in place in order to make sure that what you are planning and what you're getting ready to roll out in terms of bringing your teams into a virtual environment or a remote work situation, it's not something you just go into willy-nilly. You really need to think about the impact that this is going to have, and that the work that can get done, which is like 90% of the work that can get done remotely, even if not more than that. I'm going to just depending on what it is that you do, most of it can be done at work, but there are systems that need to be in place. And it doesn't necessarily mean making your employees or team members keep their cameras on all day long. But this trust needs to build. So how do they develop that trust? How do managers develop that trust and accountability from a distance?
One, you switch from a time in the chair mindset to a productivity mindset. So when people are working...
Wait, hold on. I think we need to play that again for the people in the back. So you need to switch out of the mindset of seeing people, time, to actually the productivity.
Yes. And that's a big hurdle for people, because we've been trained, we have been acclimated to think if someone's in the office, they're being productive. But study after study after study has shown that's not true. We spend half the time in the office doing other things. And that's why most people take work home at the end of the day, because they didn't get it done during the day, whether it's meetings, whether it's chats, whether it is other things that come up during the day, responding to emails. The actual productive work doesn't always get done at the office, but we believe it does. So if we don't see butts in seats, we think nothing's getting done. But in reality, the productivity is the real measure of what's getting done. Instead of worrying about, is this person clocked in, ask, are they getting the work done? Because in a remote environment, a big part of remote is flexibility. So I may not be in front of the camera 8 hours a day, but if I'm still able to get the same amount of work done, and studies have shown that in remote environments, people were actually more productive than they were in the office, then the real proof in the pudding is, are they getting the work done? Not are they showing up and sitting down and able, like, you know, in class, when we grew up, you come into class in your 3rd and 4th grade and they do name call, they roll call. And it's like, here, present. I got a Ferris Bueller clip going through my head. Bueller. But that's the way we think work works. And it's just a fundamentally incorrect assumption. Absolutely.
You stated that so well. It's not about the butts in the seats at 8 o'clock in the morning. It is about, is the work getting done? That's the bottom line. And some people's best time of day, maybe 8 o'clock at night. And between 8 and 12, they could whip out what it would take them from 8 to 5 to do during the day, because that's not their time of day. Do you see what I'm saying? So different people work better at different times of day. And if it's not urgent that something has to be done within the next hour, then why not allow people to operate at their prime time, right?
Nick, you make a good point, and I will bring this to the floor as well. So in the team, so is the work getting done? Yes. The other side of that is, do I need something from you, and are you available to provide it when I need it? So there is some frustration because our team is 100% virtual. So I understand that some people work better at night, but I may need you available. I don't need you like moment by moment. So that's why the chat is open. Again, structures and processes and procedures. Like if I'm asking for a certain thing that I need that's critical for me right now. I'm hopeful you have it or you're working on it. But if you're not clocked in, if you're not in chat, it makes it really difficult to collaborate. So that's the give and take of the flexibility. I don't mind if you're at a soccer game. I don't mind if you're at a basketball game. If you can respond and get me what I need, I don't mind. Because again, it's about productivity. It's about getting the work done. It's not about where you are, but it is about accessibility. And because we have the technology, I expect you can be accessible almost anywhere. So if you're working at 8, I may not see your response until the morning because I may have set boundaries saying I'm not going to get emails after this time of day. I may have set those settings up so that all of those things are muted until the morning, and that's absolutely fine. But when I'm working prime time, there should be, and this is for leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs, there should be an expectation that I can get something back from you. And we are able to collaborate in real time as necessary. Like our team has a stand-up every day. 15 minutes. What did we do yesterday? What are we doing today? Okay, we're all on the same page. It's kind of a short take on my 5P process for meetings. And so that's what we do to stay coordinated. And in that quick meeting, what we do is I make sure everybody knows what everyone else needs. And so if there's something that needs to be provided that we're working on that day, everyone's on the same page to say, okay, that's what I'll get for you. I'll have that for you. Otherwise, if you just say, okay, everybody go be remote, it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you have a structure that starts with a 15-minute stand-up, because that is so important to, I think, first of all, to let you know as the leader, yes, my people are here and present. Yes, I know what's going on. Yes, my people know what I need and what each other needs. And so now I can just trust them to go out and deliver the things that they're supposed to be delivering, and that they will be available to me if I need them. So I think at the very beginning of the day, that should set the mind of the managers and the leaders at ease, knowing that they already have a capable team. They know their team is capable. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hired them. And I'm sure over time, they've proven themselves that they are trustworthy. And so starting out the day with those 15-minute stand-ups, I think is brilliant. And I'd love to learn more about these 5 Ps that you were just talking about.
You would ask me. Now, as soon as I said, I shouldn't have said, I was like, I'm going to forget them as soon as I mention them. And it's okay. I will, I'm planning on writing a blog about it, but it is fundamentally, and I'm going to flub through this. So I'm just saying all up front, I'm going to mess this up. So it started with a 3P process that I read about, and I thought it was great, but it was incomplete. The first one is progress. You start with what you've gotten done, then what you plan to get done, which is plans, and then you talk priorities, because this is where leaders get to interject without feeling like you're micromanaging, saying, you may want to do ABC, I may need you to do XYZ, so then we can coordinate on that. Then we talk about problems, and my job is not to solve your problems, but to help you solve your problems. My job is to help you find the space to figure out what you need, versus me being the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain saying, oh, you need to do this and this. No. I want people to know how to solve their own problems. And then last but not least, it is prevail. So once you tell me your problems, you tell me how you're going to overcome those problems. And that in itself is where they get to show how smart they are. So how do you prevail over these? Because it's not about, and if in those problems, I hear things that I need to do that they cannot do, that's when I can step in and say, okay, I have to go do that for you. Trust me. And then I put that on my to-do list, versus just leaving them saying, well, sounds like you got a tough situation there. Tell me how it works out. So that's the 5 Ps.
It was amazing, and it made perfect sense. I totally get it that you have to start with the plan, the progress. No, I'm going to get them out of order too. Progress, plans, prevail,
priorities,
priorities. Yep.
Problems, prevail.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, before I used to put the priorities at the end. It was only recently that I moved them to the middle because it was a more natural fit. It was like a year or so when I had gone from just the first 3 Ps, and then I moved priorities to the middle because it felt more micromanaging to get through the whole thing and then come back and say, well, let's change these 3 things. So now I teach it and I use it with priorities in the middle. Again, it's something I do intuitively now. That's why I have to step back and think, okay, what are the 5 Ps?
I got it. Well, I think that those are some golden nuggets of wisdom right there that so many managers and leaders can definitely take to heart and start to implement like immediately to have more effective meetings, especially when they're managing remote teams, to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that everyone is aligned with the priorities and with all of the things that need to get done and the expectation. So, I mean, that's just so important. So one of the things that I hear a lot is that or one of the problems, and I think it's even been researched, that remote workers feel disconnected and like they're not seen or not heard if they're remote. And there are like maybe some people on site, maybe they're remote, and they feel like a disconnect or like they are not engaged like everyone else, or they miss opportunities because they're not on site like everybody else.
Sure.
How would you help managers bring them in, keep them involved and engaged, and make them feel a part of the team and let them know that they're not forgotten?
So you're right. Research has shown that remote workers are less likely to be promoted. They are less visible, obviously, by definition. So there are hurdles. So managers and leaders need to actively bring them into the conversation, actively bring them into meetings, actively think about them, their training needs, their organizational and personal development, professional development needs. They need to not take an out of sight, out of mind approach and just deal with the folks in front of them. Because now that we have more hybrid scenarios showing up where there are people in the office and there are people online, leaders need to be very intentional. And you'll find me say that word over and over and over in my trainings, in my speaking, in my courses, all that good stuff. You'll hear me say intentional, because what we end up doing is thinking it's going to work itself out. And often things do not just work themselves out unless we work them out. So as a leader, as a manager, what you want to do is you want to schedule times where everybody's on a call together, social times. You want to make specific time to have those 5P or individual one-on-one meetings with your remote people, just like you have with your people that are in the office. If you have a drive-by meeting with someone in the office and it pertains to someone who's remote, loop them in as soon as possible. Have that person loop them in. Don't leave them out of the loop or in the cold. Just make sure that you keep them connected and apprised of everything, just like you would if you were, doing a drive-by meeting or seeing someone in the hall. You just have to think about things a little differently. And it does go a bit against our training, but to our credit and our detriment, we are very email centric. So it won't be more than just a quick update email saying, oh, I spoke with so-and-so about this, and it directly impacts your project. Just can you connect with them to see how this works? If you as the leader keep your virtual people top of mind, they will remain top of mind. If you as a leader act like they don't exist except when you need them, then yes, they will feel left out. They will be left out. They will be overlooked. They will be included in training opportunities and all the other things. So as the leader, as a manager, the onus is on you to ensure that your remote workers receive the exact same level of your time, effort, and attention as your in-person at the office members of your team.
Right, exactly. I love that. So basically, leaders need to lead remote teams with intentionality.
And
they need to be intentional.
And I was just going to say, so much of a good leadership translates to virtual leadership. It's not like it is, to put it very simply, virtual leadership, if you're a good leader, you will be a good virtual leader. If you struggle as a leader, you're going to struggle in a hybrid, in person, and virtually. What ends up happening is you just need to translate your good leadership skills into a virtual space.
Right.
That's what ends up happening. And there are other things where if you've got time zone concerns where they weren't there before, it's good leadership with an add-on, with an extra understanding that you got to take 1 or 2 extra steps to ensure that people that aren't physically with you are able to have the same experience as if they were in the office.
Right. Oh, I love that. That so well said. And then I love too how you were talking about there are so many of these drive-by meetings that happen in person, and I put drive-by in quotes for those that are listening later, because that happens all day, and that's half the reason why people don't get their stuff done during the day. It's because of these drive-by meetings. But anyways, I digress.
No worries.
When they're having that conversation, we now have tools and technology available that even in that moment, if they find that they are talking about something that pertains to somebody who is remote, how easy is it for them to whip out their phone and get them on a video call with this person right here that whose desk they're standing at, and loop them in right then in the moment so that they can be a part of the conversation? That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great idea depending on the tech. So I work with some government clients where that might not work as easily. So that's why you'll hear me kind of working through certain scenarios saying, would that work? Would that not work? So in most instances, that's absolutely potentially possible. Again, assuming that person's at that desk at that moment, right? Or, available at that moment. Because just like in a real office, you could be in another meeting when they're having their drive-by meeting, and therefore you can't show up. You can't just jump out of your meeting to be here for this. So there's that consideration for what other people are doing. And so you bring this up, it's a great point. Just because people are remote doesn't mean they're 100% more available. They're still doing a lot of the same work. They're just not in front of you. So imagine, like in the scenario I just gave, if I was already in another meeting, I couldn't show up in your drive-by meeting just because you pulled me up on a video call. And then if you're frustrated that I wasn't available, it could lead to you not trusting that I'm working at all, when in reality, I was working on something else and couldn't be interrupted. So this is where that trust comes in, and it plays a huge factor in virtual situations, because you're going to create a scenario. You're going to explain either positively or negatively why someone wasn't available right there. And that idea of just pulling them up on a video call very quickly is almost, they need to be on screen all the time. They need to be available and accessible all the time, which will lead some managers to a darker place mentally when they think about that person, because they weren't available for the last 2 times I randomly tried to get you. Just think about how many times you've called someone in their office and they didn't answer. Didn't mean they weren't available. It just meant they weren't available right then. So we have to be very intentional about how we see remote workers, because it is a different paradigm. Your leadership style, and that's what I started to say this before, the pandemic exposed bad leaders. There are good leadership does translate, but your mindset has to shift as well. You have to open up the parameters of what is acceptable behavior for an employee, because you're not going to get the same exact experience of someone sitting in the office with you.
Right. That is so true. So true. And I love that whole mindset shift that needs to happen. It's becoming more and more necessary, like as never before. Like the pandemic, sure, we had to, but like even now, the pandemic not only exposed bad leaders, but it also helped more people realize the value of their time and their life, and that people have decided over and over again that work-life balance is important to them. And so now more people are looking for work from home type opportunities so that they can have this flexibility, so that they can make the most of each day that they have available to them in this life. And so the mindset shift that managers need to have is more important now than ever, because it is a different type of leadership that is necessary when it comes to engaging a remote workforce. But it can be done, and it's been done so many times so well, and there's so many examples out there to learn from, and people who are doing it well that we can listen to podcasts and supporting you. People can reach out to you and get more advice on, well, how do I do this better? How do I really get good at being a remote leader? Because even like I was just listening to the news the other day or talking to somebody about colleges and universities and how there are all these cuts being made in education, and research projects are not I'm going to get all the facts wrong, so I'm not even going to try. But anyways, there's a huge impact to the education system because of the things that are going on now. And so things are getting cut. Money is becoming more and more unavailable. And so a remote work type situation could be facing them. But as you know, in colleges and universities, most of them are very traditional. They're like, we do this because of our students that are more student facing. We have to be on site. But what would you say to those leaders who are considering whether or not they should go remote or how they can go remote given these new circumstances that they're facing?
Well, it depends, because each organization is going to be a little bit different with different goals, different needs, and serving different audiences. So what I've seen is, even when I did my doctorate, I think I finished that back in 2016, that whole process was online, right? So organizations, and they have a lot of universities offer online courses now. The question is, for the actual staff and administration, how much of that is done online? That would also require a little bit more of a deep dive into what you're trying to accomplish. So some things can be done online. Like I said, I personally believe 90%. And when I do say 90%, I'm thinking about my government clients who, some of them, they have to go to a secure place. And they can't just text it, right? So there are those situations, but in a business situation, it probably goes up to 95%. In an academic situation, a lot of it could be done virtually, but you've got to remember, most academic organizations have storied histories. They have quads, they have the campuses, the buildings, and the actual location is just as much a part of the experience and a part of the brand as are the courses they are providing to their student body. So it's one where, in that instance and in that scenario, it might just be a tougher sell because of the history. And that's just going to take time. And the things that break down those long-standing beliefs are fundamentally market shifts. If the money goes away, like you said, or the student body drops, the enrollment drops, then what you find is people become more open to new ideas, new responses, new solutions, far more than they were when things were status quo and everything was good. And this is the way we've always done it. So fundamentally, just like the pandemic, a huge shift, a change that you didn't see coming, it will just prepare people for that. But you can't usually force people to make those changes, because they will always have great reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. It is just like with coaching. I can't force people to be coached, even though their managers send them to me, right? If they don't see the need, they will never really jump in and be a part of the process. They'll participate, they'll check the box, but they won't be a part of the process. So people have to know why things need to change, unless, again, like a pandemic, everything's forced and you already know why things change. But a big part of change, and I think we've kind of drifted into change management a little bit here, but a big part of it is winning the hearts and minds of your employees and the staff, so that they understand this isn't just a knee-jerk reaction. This isn't just a, like you said before, a willy-nilly change. It is a change based and grounded on the new reality that we have to adapt to. And that's fundamentally where most change efforts fail. They don't communicate them well usually from an organizational leadership standpoint. And I can tell you this, in a lot of the organizations I've worked with, when they go into change mode, I come in after the fact and I hear how they did it. And I'm like, well, if we had done these 4 or 5 things differently, we might have gotten a much different response. I did help one organization change their entire culture and start hitting targets, but I was there through the whole process. And that CEO to this day loves me. And I said, she loves me like cooked food, right? She says and this is years ago, they still lean on the things I taught them back then. I talked to another coaching client, and we haven't worked together for about 1.5 years. And he said, just yesterday, he said, David, I'm still doing everything exactly the same way you taught me, and it's still working. And I was like, because when you understand human psychology and you understand what people need, you can put yourself in their shoes and understand that if I go about it this way and I just say by fiat, this is it, this is done, this is the way we're going to do it, with no input from the people who actually have to execute this plan, I can tell you, I would bet folding money that that's going to fail 99 out of the 100 times. I can tell you it's going to fail. But if you actually step back and understand the whole process and understand it from not just your perspective, and this is a whole much larger like consulting coaching approach here, but if you understand it from someone else's perspective, and that's the big thing, shifting your own perspective beyond what you think needs to happen, you're far more likely to have a positive outcome than if you were just to go about it, as I see a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders just try to, bulldoze it from positional authority versus working more of the social aspect and understanding what people need and why they might not be as on board with the proposed changes they are. Last point I'll say here is because you've been in the rooms where they've answered all those questions and you understand it, but usually those answers don't trickle down. All that comes out of those meetings is here's what we're going to do.
Right. Instead of involving them in the process from the beginning to get buy-in. How important is buy-in, so that people know and understand the reason for all these changes, or the reason, unlike, like you said, unlike the pandemic where it was just forced on everybody. We're in a different day and age now, and it's not a forced thing, but if it is a desired thing, then everyone needs to know the reasons behind it, not just do what I say because I said so.
But that's the way most change is implemented. It's almost in that pandemic level, do it because I say do it, versus a more collaborative approach where it's here's what we need, here's what we know needs to happen, what's the best way to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And that's where most organizations fall.
Wow. So good. So how do you, given this new dynamic in this day and age of where we are, how do you see the future of remote work evolving?
That's a great question. So I will tell you, I do not have a crystal ball. So this prognostication could be 100% accurate or 200% inaccurate. There's no way to know. I do see that it's going to continue because the horse is out of the barn. There's no way to pull that back now. High performers are looking for more flexibility, as you mentioned earlier. Your key people are going to want more flexibility. Remote work in some form is going to be the status quo going forward. And I can't see an arena where that doesn't happen. Again, very, very few examples I can think of that might require you to be in a secure room or do something specifically at the office. But beyond that, most industries have made themselves remote friendly enough that I see it becoming more and more of a trend. I do see that more and more companies will move to a completely offline model. Don't get me wrong, I think it was Upwork or another company that during the pandemic just decided they were going completely remote. And there was more than one. And I do see that will be a trend because there's just so much more of a profit reason there, because if you don't have to keep up those expensive leases or those expensive mortgage payments, and you can divest of some real estate holdings and add that to this quarter's profits, what's not to love? As long as things are still chugging along and things are being done, the productivity stays high and you're giving more people that flexibility, which keeps morale high and engagement higher. Therefore, I don't see the downsides. Again, that's my prognostication. I see it going more and more. I see larger and larger organizations stepping back from the back to work orders over time. Right now, I feel like everyone feels they need to pull everybody back to work because that was the status quo from pre-pandemic. But I think now that it's out of the barn, that this is now a legitimate way to get things done, and studies have proven that we're more productive in a remote environment, I believe we're going to end up seeing more and more companies decide in the next 5 to 7 to 10 years that they are going to go all remote. That's my prognostication. That's me. I'm putting the crystal ball away, but that's what I think.
I love it. And you know what? I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And some of our clients are even having conversations about, why do we even need this office? We come here once, maybe a quarter, once every 6 months, to have an all staff meeting that we can have online, remotely. People have these offices, they don't even come. Why are we still incurring this incredible downtown office space square footage expense? There is absolutely no need for it. So yeah, I agree with you. More and more companies are coming to that realization that yes, they can save all of these funds from this expense and put them somewhere else to, number one, help their bottom line, and still discover new and incredible and innovative ways to keep their teams engaged and motivated to continue in continue the productivity that they had in the past when they did come into the office, or increase it, like the studies have shown typically happens when people work from home. Yeah, so I agree with you 100% that remote work is going to be like the absolute way of the future, and companies, entire companies, are going to be letting go of all their brick and mortar expenses so that they can increase their bottom line.
And if you even take a quick look at the job opportunities that are out there now, you'll see about half of them say remote. About half of them already say remote. It's not like this is going to be some future landscape. This is happening now. It's just, if you were already in person, I think that's more the back to work. I did have one client I worked with a while ago who was hired for a remote position, and then they did a 180 on him and they brought him in, and it was in a different state. So that was a challenge for him, but that is rare. I haven't seen that too often, but I'm sure that does happen. But again, in a workplace or in a job market where there are more jobs than skilled people to do it, you can write your own ticket.
Yeah, that's true.
That's fundamentally the through line of promotable. I know you mentioned it earlier, but your job is to make yourself so desirable, such a unicorn, that no matter where you go or what you want to do, someone will always pick you up. You're always promotable.
Well, yeah, and tell us more about your book, Promotable, and thank you for bringing that back up again, because that is something that we all want to be. If we're in corporate and we want, career ladders, we always want to be promotable. We always want to stand out from everybody else. And so, how does your book address that?
Oh, it goes through a lot of what I share and I present when I'm coaching. So, and I wrote it like we were sitting at a coffee shop, just you're chatting with a friend. So I'm just like I'm talking now. I try to talk like that in the book, because I don't like it when people, it's just a pet peeve. I won't go ahead and get into all that. But what I did was I give you clear tips on what you need to do to show your direct supervisor that you're ready for more responsibilities. I talk about how you can take stretch assignments. I talk about, how you can make sure your direct manager knows that you're just not another person that needs to be managed, but you're basically a trusted individual who can get things done on their own, right? And can be trusted to do work, come back, versus someone who needs to have their hand held the entire time, who is never going to be perceived as being ready for some additional responsibility. And honestly, Promotable came out of an experience, and I think I shared in the book, where I had at that same company where they wanted me to drive 6 hours one way for a 30-minute meeting. So take that with a grain of salt. They told me, I talked to the president of the company. He was like, David, you're not promotable. Why would I ever promote you? That was the day I decided to quit that job. It took 2 years to execute that plan, but that was the day I was like, I can't be here, because I'm always going to be somewhere where I'm valued. And so the idea in Promotable is to make you stand out from the crowd, because everyone is doing pretty much the same things. And this comes from a lot of work, like I said, with clients, where I've helped them get promotions. I've helped them go from VPs to C-suite. I've helped them go from individual contributors to supervisors that are succeeding, and people want to be on their teams. So all of that, I kind of rolled into that book to help you to say, hey, this is what you need. And I designed it to be a short read. because I don't like to talk too long. I don't like to say too much. I just like to answer the question and get out.
Right. And that is so perfect, because in this, like you said, this is an employee's market where we are in this day and age. And so while employers have tons and tons of opportunity, there's just as many qualified people out here who are vying for those opportunities. And so they have to be able to differentiate themselves. And I love how you started, even at the basic foundation. Just take on a stretch goal, take on a stretch assignment, do something you haven't done before, and stretch yourself beyond the daily norm of what you've been doing, so that you can demonstrate your skills and capabilities and what you can do over and above someone else who may just be happy doing the day-to-day routine things over and over again. That's what makes you promotable. And that's what makes people remember you and remember your name. And that's important. And one of the things when I was in corporate, I had a really great supervisor, and he said, talk to people who are in the roles that you want to have and find out the things that they did to help them get there. And then when first of all, when you engage somebody in that way, they feel really honored that you would come to them and ask them a question like this, and they get to tell their story. And then they eventually become an ally for you, and they remember you, and they're the ones who help position you to receive the things that are coming that other people may not even know about because they're not on that level.
I did just that with one of my clients. We were coaching, and she was trying to be promoted. It was pretty much locked. The organization structure was an older multi-billion-dollar company, and she was trying to move up. She'd been comfortable in her space for like 13 years. And so we started working together. And one of the things I helped her do was get those connections, meet the people no one else could meet. And within 4 to 5 months, she had great relationships with presidents of different divisions. She was talking to the chief counsel, like in the hallway, just like, hey, what's up, girl? You know, it was just that level, because I coached her through the process, because it's easy, but it's not, right? Because you can go in there and do it all wrong and then leave a bad taste versus doing it right. And people see you in a way that, like, I didn't know about that person, or I'd heard about them before, but wow, they're really something. Because you want a choir of people singing your praises. That's how you move up. And to the point where her boss reached out to her and said, what are you doing? I can't get on these people's calendars. How are you talking to these people? And I was like, well, it's a proof. I do it, and I know how to help people do it, but her boss couldn't do it. And so that it's just amazing when you see people light up, when you see people, and she's another one that sings my praises. Another one loves me like cook food, because I put her in rooms. And once I can put you in the room, you still got to make things work. And she was making them work because she had the personality. She was outgoing enough, and she listened. Right. So
that part. Yeah, you have to listen. When you're given wise counsel, you have to listen.
Exactly. Some people want to do it their own way, and it's like, well, what am I going to do with that? I can't help.
Right. You know? Exactly. Like, why you even come to me? So getting back to our business leaders, I think that is so important for business leaders to remember that when you are building a team, whether remote or in person, but especially remote, to keep them in mind, or to welcome the opportunities that they bring. If they ask a question like that, if they want to take on more responsibility, or if they want to, as a way of staying seen, and they reach out to leaders to say, hey, I want to do this, then we should be open to it. As business owners, the continual professional development of our team only makes us better as owners, as business owners.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people are threatened by it. So I think you hit the nail on the head, that if people are asking for stretch assignments, it's because they want to do more. They want to be more helpful. They want to grow. And when you fundamentally understand that that's what most people want, that one of their intrinsic motivators, everybody's intrinsic motivator, is to do and be more, to grow, to progress. So if that threatens you, that's a you problem, right? You got to step back and ask, why am I holding this back when all that can happen here is help me? So I mean, some leaders and organizations actually try to keep the best people locked into their teams. And I think that's a terrible idea, because if someone outgrows your team and outgrows what you can do, the best thing you can do is let them go up. So now you've got an ally with somebody who's now on your level or moves past you. Those are good things, right? So you want to be open to your team progressing. And when people show that they have that desire, that inclination to grow, feed that. Give them more assignments, give them the opportunities. Don't just like shovel all kind of stuff at them, but give it to them piece by piece. One of my best, and I tell this story, one of my best managers way back in the day when I worked at another multinational company, what he did, I started off as a network engineer, and I got pulled in to do this recruiting thing. And so I made a couple of concessions. I was like, I'll do this if you let me go back to my HBCU and recruit there too, because it wasn't on their list. I was like, I need to hit some HBCUs. And they were like, fine, David, go do what you got to do. I was like, cool. He gave me this huge assignment bit by bit. So I would go, he gave me enough and I succeeded or exceeded that. And so he gave me a little more and give me a little more. Within 6 months, I was worldwide recruiting manager or worldwide recruiting director. I don't remember what the title was, so long ago. But the point was, he did it in such a way that I always felt confident in this bigger and bigger assignment he was giving me. And that was, I would give that to anybody. When you see people that want to do more and want to achieve more, that are really trying to, they're showing enough ambition, they're showing enough of a desire to move up, feed it. Just give them a little bit, see what they do with that. When they come back with that, or if they fumble with that, you kind of, rework those things there, figure it out how they can do better, have that debrief, and give them another piece of the assignment and let them grow in confidence, grow in your trust, and grow professionally to the point where they outgrow their role. And that's how you help, from a manager or a leader's perspective, help your team continue to grow. Because at the end of the day, it's not about making sure they work when you're there. You want your team to be able to function without you.
That's right. That should be the ultimate goal. Is to develop a team that runs so well, whether or not you are there is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because things keep moving. And I love how you said, give them just a little bit at a time and allow them to develop that confidence in this new space before you add more to it. Because some people can have all of the goal and ambition and passion and desire and all that thing, but they may not have the skill to match it. And so you have to give them opportunities to develop those skills. And so that they can match that skill with that passion and continue to grow in the things that come naturally and make their eyes just sparkle and light up. And I think one of the other things that's so important too is to, maybe you might have in your mind what the end result is going to be, like this global recruiter. Certainly, I don't think it's wise to share that with the person that you're delegating something to or giving them these stretch assignments immediately. You in your mind, or to them, it's just like, oh, I'm just doing this one little thing. Oh, I'm just doing this other one little thing. Oh, I'm just doing this one other little thing. And instead of like water hosing them and saying, in 6 months, you're going to be the global recruiter. That can be intimidating and really set somebody up to fail. Because they don't feel qualified from where they are right now.
No, if you had asked network engineer Dave if he could do that, he would have said yes, but that's only because I would have just said yes. And that was a big part of it, right? I said yes to whatever they were offering at the beginning. I didn't turn it down, but I would have said yes, but it would have scared me. It might have locked me up a little bit. Young, we're in our 20s, we think we can do everything, right? So I probably would have said yes, but it would have scared me and it would have thrown me off. The way he did it, even then, I looked back at it and said, that was brilliant. That was brilliant the way you gave this to me. And I told him to his face, I was like, I see what you did here. Thank you. One, for believing in me, and two, for giving it to me in a way that I could receive and work within.
Yes. I love it. I'm so happy for you that was your experience and that you get to tell that story, because it means so much to those who are, number one, trying to be good leaders, to know what that looks like in real life. Like, this is how it worked for Dr. David, and this is how it can work for you as, you know, as a leader and as an owner of your own business as you're trying to grow and develop your teams. Do these things, and you'll develop great people, which is only like the ultimate goal, to have so many highly developed people that they don't even need you to be around, and you can actually take a vacation. How about that?
Exactly.
I love it. Oh, I can't believe we're almost out of time. Dr. David, how can we stay in touch with you? This is so good and so relevant in so many different ways. Change leadership, building, you know, for business owners, remote workers, all of this is so relevant for today. We have to stay connected.
Absolutely.
So how do we reach you?
Oh, the easiest way is arringtoncoaching.com. You can get me there. I think if you go to the connect page, you'll find that there's, or I think it's the last button, the little red one, if I can see it correctly, or a schedule. That'll take you right there. You can connect with me there. This is not working. Don't worry. We are completely revamping this. There it is. Finally. I was like, is it not working?
It probably opened another screen. We had to drag it over.
There. That's what it did. Yeah. But yeah, that way you can connect with me. Easiest way to do is right there. I'm on most socials. I have our training sites there. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, which I think is up now. I can barely see. I got you in a way so I can look at you while I'm looking at the camera.
Great LinkedIn page.
But yeah, LinkedIn is great. Reaching out to me on the site is great. We also have our brand new training site, which is right there, which you can check out, and you can see some of the things that you might need for your team there. We have coaching options and things like that. I'd love to be of service to any and all businesses that need someone like me, because what I do, I feel is terribly important even now, especially when change is the only thing we can count on, that things are going to keep changing. And what I provide through coaching is fundamentally a thinking partner to help you not only anticipate, but move effectively through change so that your business and your team thrive instead of languish. And yeah, there's so many ways to get in touch. A training site, Arrington Coaching, Facebook, but easiest is reach out to me on the site or LinkedIn. I generally stay on those two platforms all the time. The site comes right to my email.
Oh, the site comes right to your email.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. All right, I might need to talk to you offline about what that means.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because I do have them filtered. So okay. Yeah, no worries. I know what you're thinking. It's like, oh, it comes right here. Of course. Yeah.
We're always trying to be, more efficient and streamlining things. I'm like, wait, what do you mean this comes right to your email? So, yeah, this might be new undiscovered territory for me. I love learning new things.
Oh yeah, we can talk about it. I try to keep everything streamlined. Even when I'm like onboarding a client, you do that in like 10 minutes. There's no long process. I have clients that have literally worked with me because I can have their teams in courses by the end of the day.
Wow.
And they're like, how are you doing? It's like, it's magic, right? Just trust. What is it? Oh, it's Ghostbusters. I can't believe it's magic. The song was going through my head. But yeah, it's magic. Don't worry about how we make the sausage. Just understand we make the sausage.
Wow. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. David. This has been so amazing. You were made for something great. So go and be awesome.